Hey, this is Dane.
And this is Tim.
And you're listening to Was It Worth It? Brought to you by SharcTank Media. We buy a game, we play the game, we tell you if the game was worth our hard-earned money. So Tim, what game did we play this week?
So this time around we played Nidhogg, a game that gets its name from a Nordic mythological dragon, or worm with a Y, that is notorious for chewing on the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. That being said, it is a two-dimensional fighting game developed by Messhoff, who has a history of several different games they've made, many award-winning of various indie game awards. However, none of the titles were recognizable. I'd never heard of any of them.
Yeah. Okay.
But apparently they've won some awards, including Nidhogg has won an award, for whatever that's worth. Anyway, it is a two-dimensional fighting game with an emphasis on weapons, specifically a rapier, and fencing. Graphically, it has a very retro style. I'd put it somewhere between Atari 2600 and the NES. However, it's almost more like a primitive Flash game, like when Flash was in its infancy and hadn't quite developed into the program that it is today. Like a lot of the first games that they had were in that style where it's more blocky and less detailed.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
So unlike most fighting games, there's no choice of characters. You just are one guy and you fight with swords. It's very Twitch-based, really, really fast-paced, and there's a lot of neat combos you can do, and, disarming your enemy is a big thing, and there's, you can jump and do a flying kick and that kind of stuff. But,
sure, and a sweep kick.
Yeah, exactly. Knock them off their feet. You can roll if they're, there's different grips you can have, where it's a high grip, low grip, medium grip, that kind of thing. And if they're gripping it up high, you can roll under the blade, and
if they're gripping low, you can kick them in the face.
Exactly. There's lots of cool things you can do, but there's not much more to it than that.
Yeah, really, there's not too much more to say or describe about the game, so we might as well just move to our verdicts here. Nidhogg immediately caught my eye when I saw it on Steam. From the colorful, like you said, the Atari-like style graphics to the Twitch-based sword-fighting combat, it looked really fast-paced and fun in the trailer. And we also mentioned last week that we've been playing so many slower strategy or puzzle-based games on the show lately that we were kind of desperate for an action game, so it really seemed like Nidhogg would scratch that itch. But perhaps we hyped it up a bit too much, because honestly, I thought Nidhogg was really disappointing. The single-player mode is super repetitive, and I completed it in like 30 minutes. The online multiplayer is kind of a joke right now because there's rarely ever anyone online to match up with. I checked on a Saturday afternoon, and I kid you not, there were 0 online.
Yeah, I think the most I ever saw at once was 3, and I think for me a big issue with the online play was that any tiny bit of lag makes this game unplayable.
That too, yeah. See, I didn't actually get to play against anybody online, but that would make sense to me considering, like you mentioned, how Twitch-based the combat mechanics are.
Exactly.
Yeah, a tiny bit of lag would kind of... I mean, unless you both had the exact same lag.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's really no way to guarantee that. The local multiplayer, though, on that note, is really cool since, the combat's so complex and fun that fighting a friend can just be a great experience for 10 or 20 minutes before you get bored of it.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I feel like this game has a laughable amount of content for $14.99. And for that reason, I think it's not worth it, not even close.
Yeah, my experiences coming into it were pretty much the same as yours. It looked really neat, and it looked like a lot of fun, and it was just the action that I had been hoping for. And when I played it, it was a lot of fun for what it is. Like when I first played, and when I first disarmed a guy, and I didn't really realize what I was doing, and then I rolled under his blade, and every first time I threw a sword and it hit a guy in the face. It was so fun. But that was like 20 minutes, and then I was like, okay, what's next? Because like you said, the single player was seriously repetitive because it was the same. You essentially do the same 4 levels 4 times in a row, and then with very marginally, incrementally more difficult, like AI, exactly. Yeah. So it's like there's 16 levels, but each level's just slightly better than the previous one, and there's almost no discernible difference unless you jump 8 levels ahead, and which you can't do. You have to do them all in order, and it's just like doing the single player once was all you'll ever want because there's no reason to do it again. There literally isn't. I mean, you can't. There's no different characters to pick from. And
well, the only reason I would think someone would do it again would be to try and complete it in a quicker time.
That's true. You do get a score essentially in terms of time, and
I didn't care about it, though.
Yeah, I didn't care. it didn't interest me at all. So yeah, pretty much, I tried playing online and it was completely unplayable because of lag, and there was hardly any people on anyway. The local multiplayer is kind of cool because there's a tournament mode you can do. So it'd be kind of like a fun game to pick up, you know, to play in the background with your friends if you're doing something else, where 2 of you are playing this and the rest of you are doing something. If it was $5, it would be a good thing for that purpose.
I agree.
But
yeah, 5 I think is a good price point for the amount of content here.
For $15, I cannot fathom getting what you get for $15. It's like, I don't know, man, it would be like paying $15 for a meal at McDonald's. Like, it's just, yeah, okay, it'll get you by, and it's, you know, it's not horrible, but it's just, no way is it worth $15.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, I mean, this might end up being a shorter episode, because there really isn't a whole lot else to talk about here in terms of breaking the rest of the game down, but we can certainly try.
Yeah.
So moving on from our verdicts, the gameplay is really the only thing this game has going for it. Like we've said a couple times now, the Twitch-based combat's really complex. You went into it a little bit, but you can hold your sword high, medium, or low, which you'll be switching between constantly in an effort to either stab your opponent or guard yourself from being stabbed, you know, in the face or the genitals,
Right.
or the stomach. But you can throw your sword at the opponent, which you need to time perfectly, otherwise they'll just parry it. Like if you throw it at them and they've got their upper guard, they'll just parry it. If they have their lower guard, it'll hit them in the face.
Yep.
Throwing the sword is cool. If they're coming down from a jump, it almost always gets them, which is a good strategy. You can do cartwheels or dodge rolls in an effort to pass by your opponent or even pop up behind their attack range and stab them. You can jump up and dive kick them, like we mentioned, and that actually forces them to drop their sword. And when you don't have a sword, you can kind of punch. You can do kind of like martial arts, but there's really no reason to, because if both of you don't have a sword, the goal is to pick up a sword as soon as possible off the ground.
Exactly.
Which
you run to the next sword and you do a roll over to it or whatever.
Yeah. And if one of you has a sword, unless the other person is really good, you're probably, you know, the person with the sword is probably going to win that fight. Something else that I don't know if we mentioned is the way the levels work is you actually have to repeatedly kill the enemy as you dash towards the other end of the level.
And that's why, you know, sometimes all you really need to focus on is getting past your enemy and then running.
Sure.
In fact, it's kind of dumb, some of the situations I've got in where you just kind of get past the one guy. So to go into it more, basically you start in the center of a big stage, and then you kill a guy, and then you run in his direction, and your ultimately goal is to work to the very end of his side of the stage. And then as you're going, he'll, you know, when you kill him and you start running, a new guy, you know, after 10 seconds or whatever, or 5 seconds, I can't remember, will spawn in front of you. But the thing is, if you just get past a guy and then run, and he's chasing you, you can just kind of get through the level with no guy spawning in front of you because the guy's still alive behind you chasing.
I guess I never really let the guy behind me catch up enough, because eventually the left side of the screen kind of eats them and then spawns a new one anyway.
Well, it depends on the level.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, but sometimes you can really make a good bit of distance before it spawns another guy to fight you. And yeah, if you don't care about kills at all, you just kill the first guy, you get what the game calls right of way, and then you can just jump over the next ones. I mean, unless their skill level's a bit higher, in which case they can kind of catch you or stab you.
Right, and in some cases, there's small hallways where you literally can't jump over or avoid them in any way.
Yeah, the hallways are tough, and you kind of have to change your playstyle when you're in the hallways.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, that's about it, really. If they kill you, they get the right of way, and they start gunning it in the opposite direction. You kind of have to catch them.
Right.
But there's really only the 4 levels, and they repeat over and over again. Something like 16 different opponents, I think, total.
Yeah, 16, and each one has a slightly different color.
Yeah.
And slightly better AI, I don't know. I mean, the thing about this game, like, you know, for me, with action games and fighting games, obviously the most important thing is always going to be mechanics. So I thought, okay, well, this game's got really crisp mechanics. That's cool, maybe it'll be worth it, but I played for a half hour, and I was like, okay, I'll try online, and online was horrible. There's no sort of ranking system or anything online to make it, you know, or anything to make it competitive like that, so it's just kind of like, why try to bother with the lag to play a game that's ultimately meaningless?
Yeah, once again, I really do think that, or I guess you mentioned it, but I agree with you, really the main purpose of the game is to play with friends in the same place, local, maybe the tournaments, that sort of thing, but I still don't think that that's enough to make it fun for more than 30 minutes per sitting, and for $15, and everything about the game is so simple except for the combat, you know, But to move from the gameplay, I mean, we can kind of try and describe the graphics a little more.
I don't know. I don't have much to say about the graphics other than that they were kind of colorful.
The level design there was some detail with, like, there's conveyor belts and the castle and lava and stuff like that, and it was colorful and it was well shaded. I mean, they're obviously blocky, but they're bright and they're fun. Yeah,
and there were some neat things like tall grass or like clouds that you kind of swipe away. And there were some neat things, but I mean, still just...
And the thing that we actually forgot to mention, when you get to the end of the level and everyone in the Colosseum's like cheering for you, the game's namesake?
Yes.
The Nidhogg, the giant worm creature, just kind of eats you. And I think that there's I think that's supposed to be almost a little game in its own, trying to dodge it. It's pretty much impossible, but I managed to jump over it once, and then it immediately arcs around and still gets you, but it kind of like... just doing that was fun.
I kind of figured that there was no way to even do that, so I wasn't even... I would just run straight and fall and get eaten.
Yeah, but that's kind of funny, a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
The music is definitely interesting. It's composed by Alfred Darlington, who goes by the stage name Daedalus, and he's known for making some pretty unique electronic tracks. As a matter of fact, like, everything that he does is really like just in the electronic music scene, so I'm not sure, maybe the developers were a fan or were friends of his or something and commissioned him to make the music.
Sure.
I'm not really sure. There aren't very many tracks in the game, but what's there is pretty dreamy and weird with some drum and bass elements mixed in here and there. I have to say it's not really my style of music, but there was one track that stood out to me, the one in the cloud level. I liked that track, but...
Yeah, the music was just it was just there for me. It didn't. I mean, it was high energy, fast paced, which was nice for the game. But it was just like there was nothing that stood out as particularly good or bad.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's better.
It got the job done.
Better than bad.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's no story at all to talk about here.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that the name of the game and the giant worm are based off of Norse mythology.
Yeah. There's no story at all.
So that's all there is to say about Nidhogg.
Yeah, the fact that we got more than 10 minutes of conversation out of this is actually shocking to me because this
I
game
wasn't really sure.
There's just nothing there,
Yeah. Well, next week at least we'll be playing Freedom Fall, which looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Still looks like a faster-paced game, although this one's like a vertical platformer where you're constantly moving down the screen, dodging horrible traps, snagging collectibles while you're escaping a tower.
And the art style reminds me of Bastion in a way. The game Bastion. And I really like Bastion, so that was like, specifically the art style. So I was like, oh yeah, that's cool.
That's right. The little dude that you play as, now that I think about it, looked kind of like the kid from Bastion with that sort of unique fashion.
And just like the colors that they use and stuff really reminiscent of Bastion for me anyway.
Yeah, so that's a good one to kind of emulate a little bit there.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I'm excited to play that one. All right, guys, well, that's it. Please feel free to check out SharcTank.com. That's shark with a C.
For Seattle Seahawks championship.
Won that Super Bowl because y'all cares about the football.
Right.
But yeah, check out SharcTank.com if you like the show. We've got lots of other really cool stuff there. And feel free to like the video on YouTube, comment on our website, subscribe, be our friends, send us fan mail.
And we haven't mentioned it recently, but we do want to take suggestions. If there's a certain game that you want us to review, let us know.
Absolutely. Remember, we will do AAA titles now, $60 games. Just, if there's anything you're thinking about buying it, but money's kind of tight, you don't really know if it would be worth the money, we will buy it. We will play the heck out of it, digest it, tell you everything that we think about it, and then you'll know if you should spend that money.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here for. So,
you got it.
Thanks for listening. See you guys later.